Hello, this is Xbox Ahoy, and this is the bonus footage from my time with the MPL this week. As per usual, I'll be answering the questions left on the comments on my video on the Xbox Ahoy channel. And so, without wasting any more time, let's get on with them. First up, IAKShay5000 says, Stuart, what's the font you use in your Beverage Guide Express videos? A simple question with a simple answer. It's actually Universe, which is like Universe without the E on the end, which is a classic font, one of my favourites. Two particular faces I use are Thin Ultra Condensed and Light Ultra Condensed. Very nice font. You probably recognise it from movie posters. It's used for the tiny little credits at the bottom. Poeta830 says, Stuart, what's your least favourite submachine gun? Ooh, it's probably a call between the Uzi and the Kypris. Neither are anywhere close to being top tier. I think at least with the Uzi you can hip fire with it. I think the Kypris doesn't have that many redeeming features. 20 round mags with the ability to penetrate as well as an assault rifle. Poor Kypris. Arizona T Drunk says, Hello Stu, I have a question for you. What do you like better, pizza or lasagna? If pizza, what are your favourite toppings? Well, I've answered the pizza topping question before. The answer was pepperoni. But as far as the battle between pizza and lasagna, it's not even close. It's pizza, isn't it? Of course. Alright, Greasy X Spoon says, Okay, this might be a bit stereotypical, but Stu, gin and tonic? Which gin and which tonic? I do rather enjoy a gin and tonic. Maybe it's stereotypical, but you know what? It's a nice, pleasant drink. As far as tonic water is concerned, for me there is only one tonic, and that is Fever Tree tonic water. It's far better than the default tonic water we get here is Schweppes, which is fine, but it's just sugary, fizzy water. As far as the gin, well, that rather depends on what's on offer. If we're in a typical pub scenario, my preferred commonly available gin would probably have to be Bombay Sapphire. Wonderful light gin, I do rather like it. It's got sort of citrus flavours to it. Other than that, if we're talking sort of top tier gins, I quite like a Tanqueray. But I wouldn't say no to any fancy gin, really. I quite like slow gin as well, that's good stuff. Walden1982 says, Stu, does it ever bother you how many really young kids play Call of Duty? The games are rated M for mature, which means that players should not be under the age of 17. Yet on the headset, it is obvious that a large number of players are actually much younger than that. This might not be such a bad thing in and of itself, except these players tend to be terrible, and in team-based games, they will drag you down along with them. How do you feel about this? I think it would be hypocritical for me to say that, people under the age of 17 shouldn't play M-rated games, or in the UK, people under 18 shouldn't play 18-rated games. But, I don't know, I wouldn't have like an 11-year-old play Call of Duty. I have no doubt that some do, but maybe that's a little bit young. I know full well when I was 14, 15, I was playing 18-rated games, and it didn't really do me any harm. So it depends on the individual, and, I'm not going to sort of make any value judgments. As far as their effect on, my experience with the game, it doesn't bother me. I tend to mute everybody when I play, except for, friends, of course, when I'm playing with friends. So, yeah, I'll quite happily ignore them. As far as them being terrible players, I relish that. I welcome terrible players, even if they're on my team, because every so often they'll be on the opposing team, and I can get sick clips against them. So it goes both ways. I don't mind losing a couple of games if my teammates are idiots. Just as long as I get a chance to play against these bad players in the next game. Haberdasher says, Steady aim does not double your hipfire accuracy, it reduces the spread by 35%. You're thinking in linear terms, my friend. It's a straightforward multiplier to the hipfire radius of 65%, and a circle of radius 65% of a circle radius 100% will have half the area. You see, it's actually proportional to the square of the actual hipfire change, so in terms of accuracy, I dare say I think area is the defining factor when it comes to hipfire, so it's actually about 2.2 times effectiveness. Steady aim is a really good perk. Shade of Darkness says, Hey Stu, Iron Maiden or Metallica? Or are you not into metal? I wouldn't describe myself as a metalhead or anything, but I have listened to a spot and I have enjoyed some of it. Of those two choices, I don't know. I like some Metallica songs. Heck, I think I've even got Guitar Hero Metallica, come to think of it. But of the two, I'm going to have to go with Iron Maiden. If for no other reason, the fact that it reminds me of playing Carmageddon 2. Ace of Hazard says, Xbox ahoy, when you find yourself far and ahead in a nice match of MW3, playing well and generally dominating your opponents, does it not bother you to hear the unmistakable sound of an enemy stealth bomber approaching? Not at all. In Modern Warfare 3, I welcome death. For it is in the shadow of death that I fight my hardest. But, yeah, I would probably take out the stealth bomber from the support package. The support package is kind of broken in free-for-all, actually. Because any semi-decent player can get like 15 kills in a game of free-for-all. Which means that if somebody's running like the EMP or the Osprey Gunner, then quite often they'll get it, even without being close to being the winner. So I lose count of how many times... Look at that RCXD go. I lose count of how many free-for-all games I've had that are close to finishing, and then somebody calls in an EMP, which really annoys me because I get fuzzy final kill cams. I think I'd rather see spread being the determining factor. I.e., you get a kill, you move up a point. You get a death, you go down a point. Rather than, you know, just the sort of basically anybody can get an EMP malarkey that you've got at the minute. But you know, hey, what do I know? I'm not a game designer. Jackal App says, Stu, how do you tell Bill and Ted apart? Aside from Ted having his rear end shaved, they look almost identical. Well, Ted's fur has grown back for the most part now, so... at a casual glance, they do look very similar, but they do have very distinct faces. They've got different expressions. Ted has kind of a rounder face and wider eyes. Bill has kind of a squintier, or triangular-shaped face. And if all else fails, they wear different coloured collars. Pirog says, Stu, do you like Top Gear? Yes, of course, everybody likes Top Gear, as far as I'm aware. My favourite episodes include the Botswana special, and also the one where they send the Reliant Robin to space. Well, not to space, but they launch it. But for the most part, it's all gold. I like Top Gear, it's good. The Bonchy666 says, Stuart, what's wrong with fins? Yes, in my last video I described the Finnish as weird. I apologise for this, I didn't really mean weird. I should have maybe, you know, phrased it in a slightly better way. It was in the question of, you know, where I would like to live. And it's really, from my perspective, the cultural difference between the UK and Finland is perhaps a little bit too great. The principal sort of off-putting thing for me is the language. Finnish is a very, very different language to English. It's a member of the Finno-Ugric group of languages, which is Hungarian is also kind of a similar language to Finnish. They're of the same family, and they're completely weird. And I don't mean the people are weird, I mean the language is, to me, very strange, unusual, and I don't think it's something I could grok. Having said that, though, I'd like to visit Finland one day. Maybe I'd discover, you know, some cultural common ground. Oh, and apologies for calling you a Scandinavian country. I know, strictly speaking, you're not Scandinavian, you're Nordic. I know Scandinavian can be, in a looser sense, be used to describe people from Finland, but they're not. It's only Norway, Sweden and Denmark which are the true Scandinavian countries. Oh, and I tried some salmiakki koskenkova, the salty licorice-flavoured drink that's very, very popular in Finland, I believe. Didn't much care for it. It smells nice. You think, ooh, it's like licorice, as you'd expect from a licorice shot. But then you take the shot, and then it's like your mouth is just coated in this layer of salt. I've got to say, I wasn't a fan. The man with the fan says, Stu, I know you say it has a higher capacity, but does 2 rounds really make it more sufficient in magazine capacity compared to the others? Hey, 2 rounds is 2 rounds. Sometimes it makes a difference. It is a relatively small difference, but it's a difference nonetheless. Gribbly500 says, Stu, have you ever tried an Australian beer, such as Boag's Draft, Cascade or Carlton Draft? And do you like wine? I actually happen to live in a winery. I'm guessing we can't count Foster's as an Australian beer, seeing as it is actually brewed here in Manchester. I think it was originally Australian. These days, not so much. As far as true Australian brews, I have tried VB. I think that might be it, unless I've tried some unwittingly. It is my ambition to broaden my horizons when it comes to beer, of course, so I have no doubt I'll try some more Australian brews in the future. As far as wine is concerned, I like wine, but I lack any passion at all for wine. For me, wine is a very, very sort of simple drink. It is red, white, rosé. It is expensive, inexpensive. It is good, it is bad. That is all I know about wine. And I'm happy enough to drink it, but I have no passion for it. Adster Film says, Stu, Star Wars or Lord of the Rings? This is important. Think carefully. Well, I mean, of course I like both. But I think if we're talking long-term appeal, if we're talking sort of overall significance, it has to be Lord of the Rings. The breadth of the lore behind Tolkien's writings just completely dwarfs the paper-thin storylines you find in Star Wars. I realise, there is quite an expanded universe. There has been sort of like a lore created. But as far as overall togetherness and completeness, I think Lord of the Rings has the edge. Kiddle Diddle says, Stu, ever thought of going to Norway? Yes, I'd actually quite like to. It's only a short hop across the North Sea on a ferry, so it's something I'll probably do at some point. I'll probably do something really touristy, like take a cruise up the fjords. But I'd like to visit some of the cities of Norway as well. Gulpsy UK says, Stu, this question might end up ripping a hole in the space-time continuum, but I'll fix that later. Ginger nuts or rich tea? Well, I spent 3 years in the biscuit biz, so I like to think I know my stuff. For me, you can't beat a biscuit with a bit of flavour, so I've got to go with the ginger nuts. Now, your rich tea, that's a solid dunker, but as a standalone experience, it just doesn't compare. SG Slayer 4657 says, Stu, what's your favourite SMG in Black Ops? And you can't say the FNFAL. I'm pretty sure I could say the FNFAL if I wanted to, but as a concession, I shall not. My favourite SMG, I don't know actually, I like the MPL quite a lot. I know the Spectre is statistically superior, so I guess I have to kind of go with the Spectre. Yeah, Spectre it is. I mean, it's got the 30 round mags, 2 rounds less, but, it doesn't really matter. But the lowest recoil in the SMG category, so yeah, the Spectre is, statistically on paper, it's definitely one to go for. Okay, Mr. I Like Music a Lot says, Hi Stu, have you ever visited the Netherlands? And if you did you smoke any weed? Or have you ever smoked it in general? What is your opinion on short on drugs as a whole, and your opinion on legalisation/criminalisation? Are you satisfied with the current British policies? I have been to the Netherlands, but it was quite some time ago for a school trip, so no, I didn't smoke any weed whilst I was there. In fact, I'm a non-smoker in general, but I do support the move for decriminalisation. And I'd like to see a sort of a movement towards this decriminalisation and the legalisation by the British government over the next, few years or so. That would be nice. I mean, it's a potential source for tax revenue, and it is almost entirely harmless. The Fusion Ninja says, which COD title do you think has been the most successful regarding weapon balance? If we're talking weapon diversity, then it probably has to be Modern Warfare 2. I wouldn't say it was the most balanced game, but as far as weapon balance is concerned, the Infinity Ward approach of making everything overpowered kind of works. I mean, sure, like guns like the ACR were kind of dominant, but you saw an equal number of stuff like the TAR, the SCAR. All of them were effective weapons. You could use them, pretty well. The SMGs were perhaps less balanced. The UMP-45 was rather too good, and all the rest of them were rather not good enough. The LMGs were actually surprisingly good. The RPD was a lot of fun to use and devastatingly powerful at a long range. People, of course, loved the intervention. And the secondaries, there was a mix of... The pistols were surprisingly good. I liked the M9, that was my favourite. The stuff like the PP2000, all of the weapons were good in Modern Warfare 2. But of course, weapon balance doesn't necessarily constitute a holistic balance of the game. Assuredly, Modern Warfare 2 has no shortage of issues. Chris Wilson, CFC, says, who will win the Premier League next year? I have no clue at all. I don't tend to follow the Premier League. But I'm hoping Wigan Athletic do alright. Munchie God says, Stu, how interesting is your life? Could you write an autobiography in the future? I'm a YouTuber, I make videos. This is an incredibly dull life. Don't believe any YouTuber that tells you that they've got an exciting life, because they don't. Especially somebody who uploads every single day. They sit in front of a computer and, you know, they sort of glee over their little sub count rising. That is the life of a YouTuber, and a glamorous life it is not. I'm just grateful that a weekly video schedule gives me a little bit more flexibility in terms of, you know, taking time off. Speaking of which, of course, I've got my birthday's coming up this Sunday, and then on Monday I'm off to Brussels. But fear not, because I'm actually working on 2 secondary videos in tandem, so you'll have the Python on Sunday, and then the Strela 3 the week after that. This does mean that there might not be any bonus footage next week, as I will actually be on holiday on Wednesday. But apart from that, there shouldn't be any sort of major changes to my schedules. So I shall see you on Friday for a Beverage Guide Express, Sunday for the Python Guide, and then probably the Friday after that for the next Beverage Guide. So, until then, farewell. Hey, I managed to go the whole video without even making mention of the whole Raw Instinct debacle. Fancy that.